Did you just blow his head off and dodge his rocket?
Welcome, one and all, to Hipster's Choice, a series where I take you on a road trip to the most underrated weapons in TF2. In this episode, we're going to talk about arguably my favorite gun in the entire game, and the reason why I've sold 3 straight shooting stars, the Classic, or what I like to call Sniper's least conventional rifle. To figure out why, let's take a look at it. The Classic is immediately a very interesting looking gun, if nothing else. To fire it, it requires the user to charge up the shot manually by holding left click and fire by releasing it. This may feel awkward at first, and thus a lot of new players end up not giving it a chance after dying with it one time, unable to figure out why their rifle won't charge normally. However, people who give it a chance and use it more will figure out the most appealing part of the weapon, its ability to retain full view of the battlefield while you charge. With the Classic, I found a lot of the time that it's rarely worth zooming in with the gun. A good way to use the weapon is hiding behind cover to charge a shot and coming around to the corner to pop one into the enemy team, whether it kills them or not. This is the reason a lot of classic snipers will justify using the weapon, including myself. However, while your rifle is charging and stays charged, until you fire, you will move at the same speed as a scoped-in sniper usually is, which can look kinda funny, admittedly. If the ability to retain full view of the battlefield while charging was the only aspect about it, this would undoubtedly be the best rifle in the game, and for some people who know how to take advantage of that aspect, it can feel like it. Especially with the satisfying feeling of watching most of the enemies you kill explode into giblets. However, this weapon isn't without its downsides. For one, you have a minus 10% damage on body shots, meaning that it does 135 damage instead of 150 at full charge. This might not seem like a lot at first, since you can still one-shot light classes with it, but it means you are incapable of one-shotting a medic with a body shot, which is very important because medics are your main target as a sniper, aside from, well, other snipers. The other downside is both the most crippling and least, for reasons I'll explain later. You are incapable of getting a critical headshot without a full charge. However, if your rifle isn't full charge and you do hit someone in the head, it'll still deal full normal damage. This isn't applicable 99% of the time unless you accidentally shoot someone in the head with an uncharged shot as they're rushing you, but in those situations, it's better to go with your secondaries or melees. I'll go more in depth on your choices there a bit later. Your playstyle with the Classic compared to other rifles is drastically different to other rifles, and it can feel extremely slow at times. The idea of the Classic as being a straight port from TF2's predecessor, Team Fortress Classic, even down to the look of the gun. I've found the most efficient way to play with the Classic is to charge your shots from around the corner, and facing the enemy team, and popping a shot into someone whether it kills them or not, then ducking back so the enemy rarely ever sees you. You sort of play as, well, a sniper. With the Classic, the name of the game is never being seen. Your gun will have a much less distinct sound compared to other rifles, and I often find standing in one spot for a prolonged period of time is very applicable, assuming the sight line is good. You'll see in the gameplay that a lot of the time, I'm standing perfectly still, and this is quite a good idea when using the Classic. I've found that if you have good reaction time, you'll be able to out-snipe even better rifles because the 0.2 second quickscopes aren't faster than you just having to let go of mouse 1 at their hitbox, which is an insta-kill assuming overheal isn't in the mix. This has made the gun feel very powerful and fun to use. Now, I won't say that this is the best way to play Sniper, not by a long shot. But is it the most fun and the most diverse? Absolutely. At least in my eyes, playing with the Classic compared to other rifles opens up so many more areas for Sniper. As long as there's cover, you can be as upfront as you want until they eventually find you. It's a bit like playing Spy, but with a gun. Oh, wait. The Classic and the Huntsman are somewhat similar in playstyle, at least in terms of how far you want to push up with them. The Huntsman does less damage and relies on a janky projectile to do well, but charges in only about a second, while the Classic takes over 3 seconds to charge for a hit scan, harder burst of damage. YouTuber FishStickOnAStick said in his video that you can think of the Classic as a hit scan Huntsman, but I disagree. The Huntsman is still for the more aggressive snipers, and I wouldn't for the life of me want to push up into Huntsman territory using a gun that takes over 3 seconds to charge. I'd call Sniper's other rifles much more long range, and the Huntsman is somewhat close range, but the Classic is the only gun that I'd say performs best in mid-range. This isn't to say it isn't good up close or from longer ranges. The Classic is a very versatile weapon, assuming your weapon is fully charged. That can be said about the entire weapon, really. As long as you have cover and your enemies aren't literally in your face, this gun will perform well, assuming you can aim, which, if you're in the character select screen and you pick Sniper, I'd like to think you can. The Classic overall is an extremely interesting weapon that takes a lot of practice to get good with. However, if you're capable and you think you have what it takes, I'm sure you'll find this ancient import a formidable weapon against even a good server. As for secondaries and melees, I think FishStick said it best in his video on the Classic. Use an SMG. You are screwed against attackers if your rifle isn't fully charged or you don't hit non-light classes with a headshot. In the scenarios where you are rushed down, switching to an SMG will give you great, reliable self-defense against the classes you simply can't one-shot with a body shot. Demos, pyros, even soldiers will sometimes struggle against that combo. If you do hit them in the head, it's great that you had your full charge and you weren't tunnel visioned, huh? The Cleaner's Carbine is also somewhat useful with the Classic. If you're good with your shots, you can get 2 mini-crit boosted shots before the crikey effect wears off. However, getting those mini-crits will be quite difficult when the goal to get them is getting 100 damage on a weaker stock SMG. This weapon is also good for any range spy checking, since disguised spies will fill up the meter at any range. However, if you use the Carbine with the Bushwhacker and you can get behind the enemy team with it, you can one-shot many classes with the weapon before they catch on, unless you're caught up before you make your move. The Cozy Camper can work, especially against Scorch Shot Pyros, which, especially while I was getting footage, appeared a lot. The backpacks in general, even aside from that, are useful in their own rights, but I don't feel like they're as good or as versatile as the SMGs. The choice between SMGs is somewhat preference-based, but if you're not running the Bushwhacker, it's best to go with the stock SMG. Girardi isn't useful with the Classic unless it's to support your team, but let's be real. Even though it's called Team Fortress 2, you're mostly solo queuing to frag. Hence the reason why medics are an endangered species in pubs. Oh well. As for melees, the choice is largely inconsequential. I feel like the stock kukri or its reskins are always useful and always a good choice. However, I still find that having a fully charged shot and knowing that a scout is about to rush you is worth going for the one-shot body shot for. Even for a medic or demo, it's more worth it to hit them with the full charged body shot and finish them off with your SMG. If you're running a backpack though, I'd say the stock kukri is probably your best bet. The Tribalman Shiv is just a bad weapon, but if you hate spies but not to the point of using the Razorback, it can be a fine choice, I suppose. The bleed damage and the melee swing do more damage than the stock kukri, but hitting an enemy more than once renders its upsides completely meaningless. The Bushwhacker is a good weapon depending on your choice of secondary. If you're using Piss or the Cleaner's Carbine, it's a good choice. Once you charge your Carbine, you can run it with your Bushwhacker, getting guaranteed crits on whoever you hit. This playstyle almost never works, but it can be hilarious to get 1 or 2 kills before being brutally murdered. My choice of sniper melee with this weapon is the Shoutout. This weapon does less damage if you're above 50% health, but does more if you're less than 50%. If you're caught out as a classic sniper, it's very common to be brought below 50% health before you're able to react. In that case, you'll get the damage bonus, which could be enough to 1-hit or 2-hit the enemy who's confronting you. I've found that even though the damage thresholds with the Kukri and the 81 damage Shansha swings are largely the same, a lot of wounded enemies will chase you down thinking that you're just a free kill as a defenseless sniper. Even a body shot followed by a buff Shansha swing will be enough to one-shot even a soldier in overhealed light classes. It's a very useful combination. One last thing that I think should be mentioned about the gun is that a lot of classic snipers will fall into the trap of wanting to go for 360 double wide no scope headshots all the time, and that's simply not the best way to play the weapon. Your gun does still have a scope, and if you feel that you need to isolate a target with your scope, zoom in and take the shot. However, if you're like me and don't care who dies to your shot, you might as well take pot shots at the pub push on last and attempt to shut it down. You are still a pit class after all. Even though the classic has much less target priority than other rifles, you still want to kill the medic before he pops uber with a well-timed headshot. Even hitting him or his pocket with a fully charged body shot might make the medic pop uber charge quicker than he'd want. And with that, I think that about does it for the classic. overall, even though I've used this gun for longer than most, I still find the situations I get into with it very interesting and worth practicing in. If you find conventional sniper gameplay boring and think the Huntsman's janky projectile isn't worth practicing at, I seriously recommend any decent sniper to at least give this weapon a try for a couple of lives. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it can feel very powerful and very satisfying, and I feel like that alone has cemented my opinion that remains today. The Classic is my favorite weapon in all of TF2. Special mention goes to FishStickOnAStick for giving me the idea for this video with his own Bad Weapon Academy on the Classic. I'll leave his video in the description. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one. What were you doing? You were just sitting there in the middle of the battlefield, just sort of. Oh, well, rest in peace, that man.
He was picking.
Battlefield, just sort of.
He was picking what disguise to use, as if it was a fucking.
As he's being shot at.
as if it was a fucking Telltale game.
Yeah. He was playing Minecraft story mode.
He was playing TF2 story mode.